nine times out of 100, the girl would end. Like, even if everything else went perfect, went extremely well, like the fact that he did that, I feel like a girl would write the guy off right then and there.
But I do feel like sometimes guys do try to like entertain the girl, either if it's like with humor or jokes, and sometimes they don't land, and a girl's expectation may not be to laugh the whole entire evening away. Maybe he drops a spoon, maybe he like does something really stupid during dinner, and then you're like, ooh, I'm getting an ick because he like said this or he did that. But like, okay, what's the reality? You know,
the number one thing apparently a woman really, this is like really fascinating to me, is man's ability to signal future resources.
A guy that I had gone out with where he thought he was being funny. He made a joke about mental illness.
What?
And
Sarah and Max, an unlikely pair in this wild podcast. They're the perfect flair. Sarah's charm, so feminine and free. A Cali girl spirit under the podcast tree. Max a strong force with a punch in every word. Together they navigate this dating absurd. Don't forget to hit subscribe, join the crew for more laughs and tales just for you. Now back to the show.
hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Good for Shidduchim. I'm your host, Sarah Levine, and I have my co-host with me, Max Landisman. Today, Max dedicated waking up pretty early in order for us to record an episode for you guys.
That's right.
I'm very, very just impressed with his dedication. I feel so bad. It's early over there. But we're both sipping our coffee, my afternoon coffee, his morning coffee. We're both sipping the tea, as you'd say. What?
I'm sipping coffee.
Sipping coffee, yes. But we're dishing out the tea, right? As like the young people would say.
In the name
about
of Shidduchim, we do it. We got to do it. It's 6:15 over here. So yeah,
it's dedication.
This is the only time we can record this week, I guess, and so we do what we got to do. So Here I am.
We have to talk about Shidduchim, so it has to happen at some point.
100%.
Either 6 a.m. or 6 p.m.
Is there anything more important? Is there anything more important than Shidduchim?
I really don't think so at this point to talk about. No, I really think it's just Shidduchim. But thank you guys for liking us, subscribing to our page. Follow us on Instagram, Good for Shidduchim. And also you can email us, goodforshidduchim@gmail.com. We appreciate all forms of, I was going to say love, but yeah, sure. Why not? Send us an email, follow us on our Instagram, like us, subscribe to our page, give us a 5-star review, a 2 thumbs up, whatever you need to do. And yeah. So welcome to our coffee corner. Whatever you need to do.
Yeah, coffee. And it's great. Someone actually reached out. I mean, you were mainly in communication with them, but they reached out to us via email, and it turns out that they're going to be on our show soon. So we don't want to give away too many details, but that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. We're very excited, especially when people email us really good ideas and different perspectives on things to be honest about that I was ignorant in terms of. So specifically these two people that reached out to us, like I personally was very ignorant in terms of dating from their perspective, to be honest with you. So I'm very happy that they did reach out to us. But today's topic, what?
It's definitely something we haven't discussed yet.
Yeah. It's very exciting. But for today, we did want to speak about or touch upon, I would say, the expectations of dating versus the reality. It's a interesting. I know that we've dabbled in this topic, but I think this episode is going to focus more on the details of it. And I guess I do believe that it does happen a lot to a lot of singles out there when you have expectations of either what your spouse is going to look like, what it's going to feel like when you first meet them, in terms of like maybe chemistry, how they look, or um conversation versus the reality of how we actually like put ourselves in these situations, what we actually are asking about in like that's like realistic. Like, are we putting the person who's sitting in front of us on a pedestal, or are we having perspective and having a little bit more of a reality check with ourselves? Like, okay, like, no, this is me trying to get him to be on a pedestal, and I have to take a step back. So it's kind of what we wanted to talk about today, kind of a chill vibe. And I thought it was very interesting. It was brought up by the topic was brought up by some of our friends, Max's friends, when he was talking about, different ideas. So we hope that when we talk about it, it brings up, resonates with some people. And yeah,
Still,
yeah. So, Max, do you want me to go first? Do you want to take it
no,
away?
you go. You go ahead. Yeah.
I'll go ahead. Okay. So, um, I think it is tricky sometimes when you're single, you're dating as a woman, to have to face the reality of what are you actually expecting from the person you're dating. And I myself am guilty of this. I mean, every day, I wouldn't say every day, but like I noticed a pattern while I was dating, that I would put a lot of pressure on whoever I was dating, the guy, whoever I was dating, in terms of like, does he act a certain way? Does he say certain things at certain times? Like, how am I being treated? And it was more of pressure, not a reality check. Like, obviously, as a single woman, there are elements to how you want to be treated as somebody who is dating and courting somebody else. But I always had to like take a step back and be like, okay, like, am I asking too much of this person who's sitting across from me? So my expectation, let's say, would be, okay, he's gonna pick me up, let's say wherever he's coming from, and then we're gonna go out to dinner, and then he's gonna drop me off. That would be an expectation. But the reality is like, okay, well, maybe he physically can't pick me up. Like, maybe don't get upset with him if he is not able to come get me because he works in Brooklyn or he works in the five towns. And like, in order for him to come and get me, he'll have to leave at 5 o'clock after work, travel like 2.5 hours to mid Manhattan. And then let's say we're not eating in Manhattan. Let's say he doesn't want to eat in Manhattan, or I don't want to eat in Manhattan, and then bring me back to wherever we are, then drop me back off. Like, the reality of the situation of a guy who would say, listen, I'm so happy to drive you back home. Any possible reason for you, any way you can come to like meet me, I would I would be okay with. Like, I would take a
Really,
step back and be like, okay, is that like, my expectation would be being picked up, eating, being dropped off. But sometimes the reality of the situation is maybe he just can't do that all, which is okay. And the reality would be for him to either pick me up or drop me off, or like, you would figure out and communicate with each other which would be the best for him. And I feel like a lot of girls, I do feel like a lot of girls are like, Sarah, like, I want to be like, I want to have like chivalry. I want to have someone who is chivalrous. And if it's the first date, I want him to pick me up. And I'm not saying it's not valid. Those feelings of chivalry and how he is chivalrous, if it means for you to be picked up, taken somewhere to eat, and then dropped back off by him, I understand. But also, you have to look at the reality. Like, traffic, how much it costs. Like, if he's going to pay for dinner, he has to travel to you. So, and also, this is just one example. This is like obviously being picked up, like, and going somewhere out to eat example, but have just in the back of your mind the reality. Like, what's it like driving from the five towns or Brooklyn or New Jersey, traffic, like at 5 p.m., like high time traffic time, like, don't put so much pressure on the guy if he is going to try to be chivalrous in different ways and you don't even know that yet. Like, just because a guy picks you up, takes you out and drops you off doesn't mean he is chivalrous. It's all in how he does it, what he does to make up for it. And I think the reality in this situation would be communicating with somebody and being like, I understand if you can't pick me up and drop me off, but I would appreciate being picked up, or I would appreciate being dropped off. But even if he can't do that, just like, don't have these high expectations of how a guy should act and how he should present himself, because the reality could be something else.
Yeah, it's interesting. To play devil's advocate, I was actually just talking about this with a friend, and it's a little bit different in the sense that a lot of these guys in the city, I would say, are like, or at least a lot of women feel that these guys in the city, because there's so many options, quote unquote, in the city, therefore they don't have to really, quote unquote, go out and pick someone up because you could just meet someone in the city, whatever it is. So it did happen recently where someone connected with someone and the guy just wouldn't want to pick her up or whatever it is. And it's not even like that far. In that case,
Right.
I totally get where the girl's coming from. It sounds like the guy just a douche. The example you gave was I felt more valid, I would say, meaning, I don't know how common it is, but sometimes the guy just can't actually get there for whatever reason. He gets off of work at 8 p.m. and he lives 2 hours away. So I don't, it's I don't know. There's got to be, like, you feel that, even though, like, even in that case, because I feel like every woman in the world would call it off if he physically can't. Because, like, do you think, like, even in such a case, like, the guy still should find a way to at least do it on the first date?
Well, in terms of what you were talking about, if a guy could actually, like, physically pick a girl up, in my opinion, he should, unless she states to him, like, I'll just meet you. Sometimes girls are just comfortable, like, I will just meet him at
Right,
wherever we're
right,
going
right,
to meet up. So if
right.
she was comfortable with just meeting him wherever, that's fine. But yeah, if you live in the same neighborhood and you have more flexibility in terms of picking a girl up, at least you should offer. In my opinion, at least offer. If she says no, you've already offered, and if she says yes, then it will be actually a nice, like, buffer time wherever you guys are walking to, to get to know each other. But I mean, um the second part of what you were saying, I forget what your question was. The second part. I'm
Meaning, like,
so
if a guy,
sorry.
like, even if a guy lives far away or whatever, like I feel like there's always, if there's a will, there's a way. I feel like there's always a way to essentially get, like, if he gets off work really late, 8 o'clock, even though he lives 2 hours away. I mean, like, that's just the nature of dating. Like, you gotta put in a little
Right.
bit
So
more effort.
right. So that could be that's up to him. I'm just saying, for a girl's perspective, the expectation versus reality. The expectation is a guy coming and picking you up and whining and dining and then being dropped off. But the reality of the situation may not be that. And I think I feel like if a guy wants to do that, then that's great. Like that's fantastic. But there are other ways of being chivalrous. And I think the realities of some of these situations are just, they need to be just toned down just a little bit. I'm not saying to um I'm not saying to get rid of your expectations, like lower your expectations. I'm just saying to have a more of a perspective of those expectations. Like
Yeah.
obviously, like for another example, let's say a guy was really a girl really wants to have a guy who's like really out there and like a lot of fun and like life of the party and like has this big personality. And when they go on the date, he's like maybe a little bit more quieter than she expected. So her expectations are this really, really like loud and like crazy guy. But the reality is maybe that guy just needs a little bit more warming up. Or maybe he was tired. Like what was the reality of the situation versus the expectation?
I feel like women get what they call the ick very quickly. And I feel like it could
Right.
be for all of a new. I feel like everyone was like, "Oh yeah, this happens all," whatever. But it's
Yes.
like, guys. I mean, I could see a lot of guys feeling like they're walking on eggshells. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
like there's literally like a million videos out there where it's actually hilarious. It's like you'll see like women saying like, "I don't like a guy who smiles," whatever, and then it like zooms out and then adds to a list of literally like 10,000 items. It's like, don't smile now or whatever it is. It's like it's every little thing. Like guys feel this way. I would, I'm comfortable enough to say that in a general sense that they, unless you're like it's literally like the top 1% of guys who can pretty much do whatever and makes no difference, but the 99% of other guys, it feels like women can get the ick from like the stupidest things you've ever imagined. Like he looked at me the wrong way. He said a joke that they didn't take, whatever. It's like one thing,
Right.
or
Mhm.
they didn't, you tell me because I'm not a woman, so I don't know.
No, so that's what I'm trying to kind of focus on what that ick, I guess that trigger of the ick, and like
Was it
what
was
the
that like a
expectation.
was that like a
Huh?
thing you used to talk to your girlfriends a lot, like after dates, like you got the it like immediate. I feel like a lot of it stems from feeling unsafe. Could be. I don't know. You tell me.
Um I feel
Or it's
I
really
feel
just
like
about like, oh gosh, like what? Like something about it.
I feel like women have this instinct. I guess guys have it too. Like when you meet somebody for the first like 15 seconds, you kind of know how the date is going to go or if you like the person or not.
Okay.
It could be. It happened like that's how I felt all the time. Um like I would be on a date and I'm like, okay, this is just not going to go anywhere. But I think it was because my expectations of how the date was going to go were just
I
so high.
By the way, I one thing I learned this, very recently from Shlomi, and I think even for me, I had like the completely wrong expectations, especially on a first date. And I think maybe a lot of people could also potentially also feel this way, but I felt like if you don't feel like some sort of deep connection, or if you don't have any feeling, like if you don't get some sort of connection, then there's no point of going on a second date at all. And what Shlomi was telling me, I don't know if you felt this way or whatever, but he told me, he's like, and what? And you think I went out with Sarah on the first day, and you think I like knew right away that like everything was going to be roses and dandy? He's like, I don't know if you remember this. It's like when you asked me how the date was, he's like, eh. He's like, I didn't expect
He's
much
like,
out of
it's
it.
not going to go anywhere.
Yeah,
That's what he
it's not
said.
gonna, which really kind of shifted the way I think now. And I feel like maybe I've had the wrong expectations on first dates. Maybe listen, if someone just texted me last night saying, "Listen, I went out with someone I know 100% like this is not the person for me. This is a more Yeshua Chevelle type stuff." And he's like, I like to. He's like, it's. I like to give 2 dates because you really don't know, just from one date, whatever. But he's like, she's busy for the next week. I'm busy, or someone's going away, whatever. And in his world, I guess it's like you really can only date one girl at a time. And he's like, I don't want to be tied down, quote, per se. And I don't even want to go out with this girl again anyway. So I'm like, why are you going out with her? Why would you feel the need to go out again if you absolutely feel like this is not going anywhere? And he finally he did agree with me, and he was just, I guess, looking for confirmation that he's like, I'm not like a douche if I do. I'm like, a douche? Of course not. Why would you be a douche?
Right.
I feel like that's totally fine. But Shlomi did change my perspective on first dates. Like it really, because I don't know. I was looking at there's this like super famous viral video of this guy named Scott Galloway. I looked him up. I thought he was supposed to be some sort of psychologist or whatever. No, he's like some entrepreneur or whatever. But he
Okay.
quoted he he's an NYU professor and author or something. But I think in business, so like I don't. But he quotes a study. I tried to look up where the study was. I couldn't find it. I tried using ChatGPT or Perplexity, whatever. They couldn't seem to find the study that he was quoting. But what he said apparently made it, to me, made a lot of sense. I was looking at the comments. A lot of people do agree. They might have added one or two items. I'm curious to get your take. He talks about the 3 things women really want, like actually want.
Okay. Okay, let's hear him.
So starting with number 3 is kindness. Kindness meaning he explained it as you're good to people, you're good to your parents, but it's not just being good. It's about being good to someone when there's no reciprocal back to you, meaning you're really doing it out of the actual kindness of your heart versus you're just doing something nice, you're acting nice because you expect something in return, or you're just like, whatever. So number 2 is intelligence. And what he said was humor is the best way to explain intelligence, I guess. I guess a girl likes to laugh. So if you can make a girl laugh, then that's good. I don't know. They say I always felt like people say that.
Unless
Like I
she's
can make,
just like a very serious person. But I guess
yeah.
if somebody can make her laugh, then that's great.
I mean, listen, I make people laugh all the time. It doesn't seem to work for me, but that's probably because of other things as well. Who knows? And the number one thing, apparently, a woman really, this is like really fascinating to me, is man's ability to signal future resources. Meaning, it doesn't mean he has to be rich today, but if he can show that he has his act together and there's like a plan that he
Like
could
potential.
that there's potential that he could be a decent provider down the road, then that's like what's most attractive to women. What do you I was reading the comments. A lot of people are like, well, you're missing emotional intelligence or something, or confidence, whatever it is. What is your take on that?
I mean, I'm interested to see like
I tried to find the study. I just couldn't find it. I just couldn't.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I'm interested to see like the pool of women and the age of women. Like what type of women and the age of women that came across that he talked to about this.
Like I don't think he did this. I don't think he did this study. I think he was just quoting.
Oh, he quoted the study
because I thought like it sounded like he was like some professor of relationships or whatever it is, but it seems like he's just an entrepreneur who sold a business and he just has whatever. It's kind of like it's kind of like Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is like a business guy, but he talks a lot about this kind of stuff. He quotes studies, whatever. I don't think he actually does the study, but
Interesting. Yeah, so I mean, kindness I think goes both ways. I understand probably a woman wants to be I guess like a woman does want somebody who is kind because in nature, women are more, I feel like, gentle in nature, maybe. And then a guy is not as gentle in that type of nature. But again, like, what are your expectations of kindness versus reality?
Like also
So
on a date, I feel like it could. You're being nice because it's a first date, so I don't know if that comes across. I don't know how to, comes across on a first
I
date because
just don't know how to measure kindness in a objective way other than a subjective way.
right.
Because acts of kindness for me may be different from acts of kindness from somebody else, you know? Like the fact of like when Shlomi does the dishes, takes out the garbage. Like these are acts of kindness where people may be like, Sarah, you're crazy. But like I personally, I'm like, that's
What's wrong
really
with? Well,
nice.
who said you're crazy? I think that's very normal. But
Right, but like I don't know, somebody may say like, Sarah, that's crazy, you know, like kindness for me is when like I guess it comes down to like the or like kindness would be for me like uh oh my gosh, what is it, verbal,
verbal
oh my god,
affirmations.
yeah, like verbal affirmations and like speaking, you know, I guess that's kind of like love language, where love languages maybe come in, but
Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
um but I mean, yeah, who doesn't want someone who is kind?
I know. So, but I don't think honestly. This is why I'm more. This is why I was totally open, like totally cool with meeting at your workplace on like literally at it, or in a more natural setting. Meaning, let's say you go pick someone up, you pick someone up on a date, you take her to dinner, and then you drop her off. How? I don't think there's any real opportunity to show that you're kind unless you see someone in like their natural state.
I mean, unless it's like it's how you pick her up. It's how you go out with her. It's more in like um the actions and the nonverbal, I guess, cues you give her of how you do it. That's what I'm thinking.
But yeah, I do think
Yeah.
that like I mean you like from a guy's perspective, women get that ick like way too like. But once they get it, they
It doesn't go
essentially
away.
this right. It doesn't go away, and
Once they get it, it's done.
it's
You're done.
done.
Yeah.
That's that's so what brings that, and I think nowadays especially that ick is not hard to get, and they're over like the dumbest reasons I've ever heard. Like I mentioned this before. Like one of the first when I first started dating, I made a joke that I couldn't read. Whatever, it was a joke, and then
Facts.
and then it was just something in Pat, whatever. And so I remember my rabbi coming up to me at the time. Well, at the time, he's like, "What did you say on the date?" And I'm like, "I say a lot of things. What did I say?" He's like, "You told her you can't read." I'm like, "I'm in college," and
Yeah.
probably didn't give her the ick because we still went out, but it really like bothered her to her core. And like stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like I feel like there's so many missed opportunities where I don't know if you I don't want to play victim, but I feel like I've been the victim of this because I've said things sarcastically and that were taken completely the wrong way. And then over time,
So, I mean, it could be like the expectation for somebody would be that a guy, when he makes a joke, it like lands perfectly and she gets it every time, you know, and she knows how to laugh at it. But it could be the reality is that your humor was just different and she just didn't get it. And it, instead of her being like, I don't get his humor, but I find him funny, she was like, the ick factor is that he's not funny, when in reality you are funny and it's just not her type of humor. Maybe she could have been like, can you explain it, I don't get it, or like,
I think that's one of the biggest things that's missing where I feel like people take things the wrong way. This happens all the time and it could be clarified and it could be clarified easily by asking like, did you mean this by saying X? And 99% of the time, it's usually the opposite way. Usually it's like, no, I didn't mean that at all. You know, because I think like
Right.
the communication between men and women are like, again, like women are from men are from Mars, women are from Uranus, or whatever. Men are
From
from Mars,
Venus.
women are from
From
Venus. It's like
Venus.
it's two different worlds.
It is.
And
It is. It definitely is. I will say though, a story about a guy that I had gone out with, where he thought he was being funny. He made a joke about mental illness,
what?
and it was really like, I will say, so my expectation of his humor, I thought I would understand and I would get it and accept it. But the reality, I realized like when he was telling the joke, instead of me just being like, oh my gosh, how can you talk about that? That's ridiculous. Like, what are you saying? Like, so I asked him further actually about the joke. I was like, I really don't understand it. Can you explain it to me? It actually was worse when he was explaining it. I was like, okay, no, like the reality of the situation is that he has just bad taste in
Well,
what is humorous, and at the same time he put down people who are suffering with mental illness. I was like, this is just leaving a bad taste in my mouth.
that's pretty messed
And
up.
it was like, it was really messed up. But I'm happy that I clarified at the time, because I was like, maybe he didn't mean what he was saying. Maybe he was talking about something else. I was really trying not to allow like my expectations of what was going on like ruin the reality. But when I honed in on that the expectations and reality were kind of the same, I was like, wow, this is actually bad. I couldn't go out with him again because it was such a like an intense joke, and
It sounds pretty intense.
it was a really
It sounds
intense
like really
joke,
bad taste.
and it was really bad taste. And if you think like making fun of people with mental illness is funny, and not only that, like when I ask you about it and you are like more aggressive at the answer, I was like, okay, it's just not
Yeah,
gonna work out. But
yeah.
I do feel like sometimes guys do try to like entertain the girl, either if it's like
Well,
with humor or jokes, and sometimes they don't land. And a girl's expectation may not be to laugh the whole entire evening away and like be like swept off her feet with his like suaveness. Like maybe he drops a spoon, maybe he like says something really stupid during dinner or like wherever you are, and then you're like, ooh, I'm getting an ick because he like said this or he did that. But like, okay, what's the reality? You know, like maybe the spoon was slippery, or like maybe he said something and you misunderstood it, or maybe you have to have it clarified, or like what actually happened, like why are you getting that ick factor, what,
uh,
like are you just being a little dramatic, like are you living in the reality, you know?
I I think we should do a scientific experiment, and I think this will help the dating world overall. I think I think it can go both ways. I think a woman should act as the guy one time for a date. And when I say that, I don't mean, actually becoming the opposite, which I'm totally against, but I'm talking about what it's actually like to drive an hour and a half, pick up the person, buy them dinner, and or do whatever. Um, Somehow try to have a meaningful conversation as you're driving, and be the one to lead the conversation the entire night. I guarantee you, they will have a different perspective at the end of the day. That if they said one stupid thing, they'll give them a pass. If that makes sense. Like as the guy, you are supposed to lead the charge. I mean, the way that I see it, or I'm sure a lot of the way that a lot of people, like you're the one that's supposed to lead the conversation. Like it could be the woman has more to say and they can lead it, whatever. All the feminists out there, they're like, oh, the women, whatever. But at the end of the day, the guy's leading the charge for the most part. He's leading the conversation. He's picking her up. He's doing all
It's
the
a lot of
stuff.
pressure.
There's a
Yeah.
lot. There's a lot going on in your head, and so of course, like sometimes, like when there's awkward silence, and sometimes people can handle the awkwardness. They'll say stupid. They'll say something stupid. Listen, what the guy said to you sounds like pretty. I feel like you're in like the 1% case where they actually said something really stupid, and like that's really just dumb. But
it was pretty out there.
Yeah.
I would say.
I'll give you a perfect example. This actually just happened at my Shabbos table, where a friend of mine was mentioning how she was set up with this guy. This guy comes from a more right wing background, so he doesn't really have like when he goes out. It's not like he's the one that is communicating with the girl directly. Usually, there's an intermediary, and so someone set her up with this guy, and she was like fine, and so he called her. He called her. The phone wasn't by her or whatever. She missed the call. He didn't leave a voicemail. Apparently, she didn't like voicemail either. I don't know what's wrong with voicemail, to be honest with you. Or he didn't text her saying like, "Hey, I tried to call. I tried to call. Give me a call back when you get a chance, whatever." He didn't do that, and supposedly, the shadchan went back to her and said like he tried calling you, and it was like a lot of it. It was she felt that he didn't like he just like wasn't great about the whole situation of the communication part.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm missing some details. It was more clear like at the Shabbos table, but because of the fact that he called just once, didn't leave a message or whatever it is, it sounded like she was getting the ick and she was going to call it off because everything that she mentioned about him at like what she heard about the guy is that everything was amazing. And so in my head, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this guy's like actually a solid guy. He's just an idiot.
Right.
Meaning like,
or he just made a bad choice in communication at that time.
But these are things that could be fixed. Like maybe he just doesn't have the experience. He just doesn't have the experience of dealing with someone directly. He doesn't know the proper way of communicating. But like, I wouldn't like write him off right away. And so I did mention that to her. She's like, no, I think you're right. I think I'm gonna because I think Rachel Solutsky said it best. She was mentioning she used to expect, sometimes the guy won't open the door, sometimes the guy won't pick me up, whatever it is, or if the guy wants to take me somewhere I don't like, she used to just kind of just let it go. And she's like, that was my expectation, but in reality today, I'm just going to be more upfront with people. Like, listen, if you want to take me somewhere and I really hate it, I'll let you know. I'm like, listen, please pick me up or whatever, or please meet me here, whatever it is. And I think that was actually a very intelligent thing to say.
Right.
I mean, like that.
How is somebody supposed to know what you're thinking if you're not saying it? Especially when you're just starting to date each other.
I think this happens a lot more, especially when you're just starting to date altogether, like when you're much younger, in your early 20s or whatever it is.
Exactly.
They don't know anything about this stuff. I think that's like the worst. That's the worst of it all. Oh my gosh.
Max, remember our friend went out with a girl much younger than him. I hope he doesn't get mad about me saying this.
Just don't mention his name or anything.
I'm not going to mention his name, but remember he went out with somebody who was much younger than him, and he picked her up from from her school, whatever, it like from her school, and it was literally in the middle of Manhattan's like traffic. Obviously, there's a lot of traffic within a lot of the Jewish colleges. And he said that she got upset that he didn't get out and open the door for her or something like that. Do you remember that?
No, I don't actually.
She told the shadchan, like, he didn't open the door for me. and she like didn't want to go out again. I don't know if that was that for that reason. He was like literally middle of Manhattan traffic. Do you think anybody would be able to get out and open a door? Like the expectation was so high. Like she wanted him, I don't know if she wanted him to park and then walk her or like stop in the middle of the traffic and open the door for her. Like what's your reality there? You know what I mean? Like obviously the reality is that he can't leave his he could not leave the car. And I think that was actually just like really funny because I did feel bad for him. Because he picked her up, they went out, it was a nice date according to him. And this one thing got in the way that he did not open the door for her, but he was like, I was in Manhattan traffic.
No, so like something like that happened. It's like right in the beginning of the date. Essentially, she wrote him off the rest of the date.
That was the
It
end of
sounds
the date. That was like towards the end. It was the end of the date. He dropped her off. And she was like, she like told her mom or the shadchan or somebody that what had happened. And like, I think it like elevated the chances of them not going out again. But like, hello, how could you like expect him to like, I don't know what her expectations were at that point, but I was like, okay, what was she like? I guess her reality is that a guy, it doesn't matter where they are, they're gonna, open the car door for her or walk her home. I don't know. I did feel really bad for him, but
what's your advice for people like that? Like, is there? I mean, is it possible once you get the ick, like that's it? Like you automatically shut down, or is there a way to
I
get
think
around it?
once you feel like getting the ick or your expectations have not been met, I think you have to like think in like you have to have perspective and think in like deep inside you, like why am I feeling like I'm getting an ick right now? Like are my expectations too high, or is he really making the date that bad? I think you really have to know yourself in terms of what actually turns you off from somebody. And I just think like an example like that, like he did not get out in the middle of traffic to open the car door for me. I think that's very unrealistic. And the expectation is just super high. And also, it's not feasible. Like, you want him to get hit by a car? Like, what is she expecting? And like, okay, so she got a nick factor from it, or that was the straw that broke the camel's back. She is not going out with him because he did not open the car door for her. I would say to her, like, maybe you need to be more realistic in terms of what you expect from a guy who drops you off.
In the
Like
city.
just think about your physical awareness, like where you are and like how he would not be able to do that, instead of being like he didn't open the door for me.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of what they call the fade out?
No.
So I didn't know there was a name for it, but I'm like, this happens all the time. Literally, the fade out is when someone quote unquote gets the ick, whatever it is, and then slowly, and then um, and then slowly retract. So they become distant, and then eventually end it, whatever. So I think this happens a lot in like over communication, like texting wise or whatever it is. Like
Mm.
and you can tell like something's not right or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and they slowly have you like do you know what I'm referring to?
Yeah, I know what you're referring to. I personally wouldn't do it because that sounds a little like
But this happens.
mean, or
This
like
hap-
it's just a waste of my time, a waste of somebody else's time. I'd rather just call them up and let them know how I'm feeling.
I 100% agree. I just feel like it almost never happens where like if I feel like communication, like if someone pissed you off or whatever, I think it's so much better to just bring it up to the other person, because I feel like it's also another opportunity to, grow closer to each other in a way, versus just holding it in and just like expecting
100%.
someone else to
A
know
hundred
that.
percent.
But it almost never happens that way. I feel like they'd rather just.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say there is obviously if you're not vibing and there's a and like I'm not telling people to like push themselves to the point where they're like exhausted every angle with dating somebody. If you really feel that like it is not a good fit, then it's not a good fit. You know yourself more than I do. But like if it is if there is something and like what you said, like you can communicate, you can speak it out, you can communicate it with each other. Are you utilizing every type of resource that you know how to use in order for something to be cleared up or in order for you to have more of a clarity if you should or should not break up with somebody. But I do want to say that like I'm not forcing people to stay in a relationship, like even it like God forbid. If you're on if you have a gut feeling and if you and you know and you're true to yourself and you know yourself really well, like obviously break up with them or but I do feel like what you're saying, the use of communication is so simple, yet people just maybe they
Don't.
don't want to communicate.
Well, they don't, because they want to avoid
It takes
any
a lot of
confrontation.
well, it also takes a lot of effort, and you don't know if you want to put that type of effort into a relation into the relationship you're or the person that you're talking to. But I mean, come on, like if you notice that you're fading out or that that's just like what's going to happen, I wouldn't string somebody along about like texting them and then just like giving them one word answers and then just like not answering or like I don't know.
No,
If it's
so
going in a direction, if it's going in that direction of you not wanting to go out with them anymore, just be upfront about it. I wouldn't play around.
yeah. Speaking as a guy, it's one of the biggest piss offs out there, in my opinion. This business of this fade out, whatever it is. Like I'm a very experienced dater at this point. So if I see that happening, then I already know. I already know this is over. Screw you.
Right. Why would you want to
Whatever.
go out with a girl
I
who's
don't. I
doing
don't.
that?
I
Right.
don't.
Like
I don't tolerate that kind of stuff anymore. But earlier on, I did, and I think it's wrong. I think it's just stupid. But it happens all the time. It literally happens every day of the week. I'd say it happens 80% of the time.
right. Um right. But I would say is this more of like people that are on an app that you've been talking to for some time and then they just like stop talking or they start fading out or if it's like people that are actually going out face to face and then
It's both. It's both, but definitely like even after you've gone out, met in person, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because like apps, like listen, you can't put too much into it. You've never
Right. I
really
was
met
gonna say
them.
with apps, it's like sometimes they're going out with somebody, but they don't want to say
Right, right. So you can't
whatever.
put too much emphasis on that. But when you actually go out with someone that you think you're dating, but not really, if they're going to be just doing this, is just again like I feel like there's a big communicate. Like people are afraid
Yeah.
to communicate. They're not afraid to communicate. What they're afraid of is any confrontation, which I think is how you build any connection at all. I feel like you can't
But
just
also
like.
it's also a testament to a potential relationship too. Like if you say, "Hey, I was expecting you to like do XYZ on that date because or whatever." Like let's say you go like axe throwing or something and like you talk to the guy and you're like, "Hey, I thought we were going to like do XYZ on the date. Why didn't you do this or that?" He may be like, I literally have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sorry I didn't do it. Next time I go out, like I'll be more like inclined to do whatever it was that she was asking for. Done. You know, you're done with, like, you've communicated it. But like I do feel like it, like, communication can only strengthen a relationship. But if you don't want that relationship, if you don't want to put effort into it at that point, like if you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I could tell him how I was feeling, but I don't want to because I don't want to cause any confrontation. At that point, if you're thinking that, I feel like maybe you should and see what happens, because more likely than not, like it's not gonna be a thriving relationship.
Right.
How can you get anywhere without telling somebody how you feel? Like I said, guys are not mind readers, and sometimes you really have to spell it out for them.
Sometimes you mean
Also,
every time.
also girls, like, guys may think, guys may think that because girls may be a little bit more emotionally in tune, they understand a little bit better of whatever it could be. But it could be not, that's not the reality either. Like, a guy's expectation could be like, okay, she'll communicate to me, she'll tell me if what I'm doing is wrong, or she'll let me know if she feels uncomfortable. Not necessarily. She may not. So the reality of that situation would be for a guy to be like, hey, are you feeling okay? I'm getting vibes like you're a little uncomfortable, or like, when I picked you up, you seem to be a little upset. Like, is that are you okay, or am I reading you wrong?
But do you feel that a woman would actually answer that honestly, or you have to ask it 3 times?
That's up to her if she wants to answer honestly. I mean, I don't, like, if you don't want to answer honestly,
Then
then
don't
I think
expect him to
somebody should
know.
think to themselves, why don't I want to answer him honestly? Right? Because if you're on a date with somebody and they ask you like, hey, are you okay? You seem to be a little bit like tense or a little bit upset about something. And you're just like, no, it's fine. It's really okay. Let's just go on with the date. I mean, it could be that it's too early for you to share how you're feeling, but also, like, why don't you want to share? I
Feel
think
like
it's like two things.
I'm just viewing it as like a hypothetical situation where I could see happening, where we're going out. Let's say like something happened to me earlier in the day and it really like hit me. Usually I don't let it affect me on dates, but hypothetically in this case, let's say it did. And she asked me, is everything okay? Like that is like super attractive thing to me, at least. Like you actually care. And even just
And
talking
she
about
picked
it,
up
I
on
feel
it.
like it builds a certain connection. I feel like it allows for two just regular people to talk about things versus just everything is so superficial that you're expecting someone to just be nice just because it's a date and just ha
Right.
ha ha.
Exactly.
But this is actually real. So
Or
yeah,
you can, or like, it could have easily have gone like, you pick her up and then she's like, well, if he's pissed off, then I'm going to be pissed off. And then you're
right.
both not talking to each other. And then it's just a terrible date. And she's like, oh, he was like so pissy and like wouldn't talk to me. Well, okay. Did you ask him like how he's doing? Maybe he had a terrible day, or like, maybe you bring it up like, wow, I'm getting really crazy vibes that you're really upset. Did I do something, or is there something that happened during the day? Like, you, like, don't expect the guy, if he is pissed off that day, maybe he won't say anything, and again, that's going back to like the expectations. Like, maybe the expectation that you wanted to go out with a guy who's like emotionally mature and like knows how to communicate and knows exactly like what to say and when to say it. Maybe in the reality is he maybe knows how to do that sometimes, but when it comes to his own emotions, he may not know how to do that. So instead of writing him off and being like, oh, he really just doesn't know how to like talk to me. Well, in reality, are you trying to ask him, or like so like, what it does boil down to is like understanding um where another person could be coming from, and then also like the reality of the situation, and kind of just taking a step back and like like taking a breath and just like kind of slowing down. I feel like a lot of people put so much pressure, even when they have been dating for a while, like on each date and like each conversation, and just like, other than just taking a step back and being like, oh my gosh, like, dang, I'm putting way too much pressure on myself, too much pressure on him. Like, it's okay for us to not have to think constantly about how the date's going, where's it going, does he like me, like, does she like me, and like, um where are we going to go on our next date, what are we going to talk about next. Like, I feel like it's more, people need to be more present, being in the moment, and just taking it like literally minute by minute, and like not having to have these high expectations with every single thing. Just puts so much pressure on you. It's just not fair to yourself or to the other person.
Yeah, yeah. I think you said it best. It's like if when I think the biggest takeaway is, um, you know, someone gets the ick. If something's going through your mind that's really rubbing you the wrong way on a date or whatever it is, that potentially to ask yourself, why why is it that, like, I don't know, you were mentioning, I don't know if I'm putting it into words correctly or the best way possible, but it's like, why am I feeling this way? Is it,
Yeah.
maybe try to put yourself in the other person's shoes to see, like, is it really, I mean, am I being realistic here, where if someone did something, is that totally because it's a really, you know, stupid thing to do and we should never go out again? Or it's just like, all right, give the person the benefit of the doubt. It's not like a permanent stain on the relationship at all. It's just like, okay, people do stupid things, just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
just as you said, like dropping someone off in the middle of Midtown and not getting out to open the
It's
door. It's just like,
hilarious.
just being realistic about it.
Yeah. I will also say that I went out with a guy. I forget. It was like at the Empire Hotel. I can't remember where we went. We
The
got
Empire
drinks.
Hotel, sure.
We got drinks. I was living in Washington Heights at the time, and he had told me that he was driving back to New Jersey, and he had a car, and it was late, and I actually was expecting him to drive me back because he was going through Washington Heights over the GWB, and he did not he did not ask me
So what you had
for
to?
like if I needed a ride
I
at the
mean,
end of the date.
yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, I was like, am I just being like am I being a little bit exceeding expectations by him just like trying to get me home safely? Like, he didn't ask like if I wanted a ride. He didn't ask like if he could walk me to the subway. And like, I talked to my friend about it. I was like, maybe I'm just being too harsh. And she was like, are you kidding me? That was a lost opportunity on his end. Like we didn't end up going out again, just for other mutual reasons. But I will say, even if he broke up with me, like face to face at that time, I literally would have been like, can you still give me a ride? Or
Right.
like,
No.
please give me a ride. It
Right.
was just funny. He it was late too. I remember it was like 12 a.m. And I was
No.
like,
So
okay, so I knew that he could give me a ride,
no, for
and
sure.
he bowed out of that. So
No, that was a stupid thing to do. But I think that's a really good example of, I don't know, hypothetically, let's say the date was good, everything was good, but he didn't offer you the ride, which I think is wrong. But I feel like that can
yeah.
be rectified in a way. Meaning, do you feel that that could be communicated to, again, like if you guys
Yeah,
actually
so
enjoy this?
what I would do, what I would have done, instead of like the expectation of him driving me home, even though he
No, no,
literally was driving through
I
Washington
think
Heights.
no, I think that's a fair expectation to have, and I think it was wrong of him to, at the very least,
Yeah.
walk you to the subway, or something like that.
I would have, if we went out again, I would have confronted him. I would have asked him, like, hey, like, why didn't you, like, it would have been a nice opportunity, like, to talk in the car and like make sure I went home safe. Like, why
No,
didn't you? Why didn't you do it?
100%. I think 99 times out of 100, the girl would end. Like, even if everything else went perfect, went extremely well, like the person, the fact that he did that, I feel like a girl would write the guy off right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's not, again, like, I think this is another pure case of, like, sometimes somebody can be really really just not see the writing on the wall and just be really stupid. Because I do think he should have, I would have driven you back. Especially at night, 12 o'clock, and you're just gonna leave a girl in the middle of the city. Like, that's like really stupid.
I am actually, like, my friend asked him like what the deal was. I don't think he ever got back to her, but I thought it was a little funny, to be honest with you. Maybe he was in a really big hurry and he had to get out of there. I don't know, but
I don't know. I just think sometimes people are extremely clueless. I don't think it's malicious. I don't think that he was. It doesn't sound like he was malicious. It was just, again, it's like really stupid thing to do. But I think that's something that could be worked on. I feel like if it's just mentioned, but I think that person would never get a second date ever in today's world.
Never.
If he did something, never, ever,
never. No.
Even if everything else went well, whatever it is, I think that's what we're trying to talk about here. I think, like, just sometimes people can be really stupid, and that's okay. But if he does it again, then I get it. I think what would happen is if you explain it, if you talk to him about it, what most likely would happen is like, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize, whatever, I thought X, Y, Z, I thought you lived 2 blocks away, whatever, yada, yada. But if he's like, I don't see what the issue is, then I get it.
Right. Then it's solidified. Right.
Exactly. But I think people are written off too fast. Even after doing something stupid like that. Even if you disagree with it completely, I think things can be worked on.
Yeah, 100%. And hopefully people just realize not to write people off as quickly as I feel like people are. But yeah. So anyways, guys, that is our show for today. That is our words of wisdom about Shidduchim. Take it, leave it, love it, hate it. Like us, subscribe to our page, and until next time, bye.
And remember, everything will always be about Shidduchim. Catch you in the next episode.